Hello and welcome back to the Crick House. It has been a couple of weeks since we've been with you. We warned you. We said we'd be busy. So apologies, but we are so happy to be back with you now. We can't wait to continue the bus story. But the last few weeks we have been very busy with Manor stuff. We've been ill. So it's all been a bit crazy. And this summer is filled with mission trips for all of us. So it's going to be an amazing time. So please be praying for us already as we go and do these mission trips.
We're already trying to get our admin heads on, aren't we?
Organisational
heads, safeguarding heads, all the things that we need to do, shows, tours, and looking for cars, all sorts of things. So we have been snowed under. Just to let you know that Miss Jamie won't be with us today.
Miss Jamie?
Miss Jamie, my wife.
Put your Manor head on.
So Miss Jamie was a term given to my mum by all the kids back at Manor Academy in Surrey. She was known as Miss Jamie and I was known as Mr. Noah, and they loved to call me Mr. Noah.
No, Mr.
Because
Poppy.
I told them it made me feel old, so they'd always call me Mr. And then another nickname I got coined with was Mr. Poppy from the Nativity, which was sweet of them.
And I was Mr. Gary.
And you were Mr. Gary.
I was the one that
Oscar
people
was
liked to pie.
Oscar. And Ariel eventually graduated to Miss Ari.
A lot of the girls my age used to like to call me Miss Ari on purpose to make me feel old.
Wow.
Well, I'm sure they did. It's because you are old.
I'm not that old. You're older than me.
So, anyway, last time we left you on a bit of a cliffhanger. We were telling you about our trip to Devon when we had to leave the campsite rather suddenly because we had gone to Yorkshire, got chased out by an angry villager, had to come back and park in the emergency car parking space at the campsite because they couldn't possibly let us back on even though there was other people sitting there. But anyway, and COVID had locked us down. Everything had happened. Boris Johnson had shut down the country. It was the start of lockdown. We had nowhere else to go.
Devon was closed.
With blind faith, we drove to Devon, got pulled over by the police. If you want to hear that story, listen to the previous episode. But yeah, and then we drove to what we thought was going to be this friend of a friend's pig farm in the middle of the Dartmoor National Park with no running water, no Wi-Fi. We'd have to walk miles to find a tap. We had all these images of prehistoric living coming and flooding into our minds.
That's right. We thought there would be no electricity.
Mm-hmm.
We knew we had a loo, but we didn't know where we could empty it.
Yeah.
So
there was talk of digging holes.
There was. We went there with a lot of trepidation.
It was a very primitive mindset at that time.
However...
Well, we got to the bit where we pulled up, didn't we?
Exactly.
And we saw the glowing cross.
Yeah.
And all Mum's plates are smashed.
That's
if
right.
you remember. And then...
trust me, I remember.
And then... Well, who would
when you're
be?
reversing downhill with the tail end of the bus longer than the average car, you know, and you can't see, and it's pitch black, and all you have is a crazy man who looks like the mad professor from Back to the Future.
He was wonderful, though.
Lovely. Oh, absolutely lovely. With a head torch on, and then Noah with his phone torch.
Yeah.
Trying to see where you're going was a bit of a challenge. However, as we said, we pulled up in this cleft of the rock. So, all that said, that brings us to the morning.
Yes.
Now, we woke up in the morning,
woke up.
all slightly jaded, all wondering what was going to
Well,
appear
let's start
before
again.
us.
Let's start again. We woke up to the sound of what? Not okay.
Ariel
Not
with
oink
that
oink. Not snort snort. Not the sound of bacon sizzling, but the sound of lambs. We had pulled up
Lots of lambs.
into this cleft of a rock, surrounded by this rock face, and on the field behind us and the field beside us were all these beautiful new springtime lambs.
So
And it was
fluffy and
such a brilliant thing to be woken up by, hearing sheep and not oinks.
Yeah.
we had this picture of being on a
We're
pig farm.
creative, so if our imagination seems a little wild to you, that's why.
It's because it is.
We're a creative family. And,
We have to remember when we woke up in that morning in the bus, the first thing we did, because the weather was warm, we'd opened up the emergency air vents on the top of the bus.
Yes.
And we had the ability to jump on the bed and stick our heads right out of the window and have a good look around.
Like a periscope out of a
Absolutely.
submarine.
So not only could we still see the cross, we could actually see where it was situated, which happened to be on this whacking great barn
Right in front of us.
right in front of us. a big farmyard.
Yeah.
We weren't out in the sticks in a ditch
Oh,
somewhere.
it was gorgeous, wasn't it? It wasn't a farm. It was a bed and breakfast.
Well, Phil's land was a bed and breakfast. He had
Yeah, it
various
was
things there.
beautiful
didn't
bed and breakfast, beautiful fields. There was loads
Absolutely.
and loads of sheep. You had all the farming fields with the sheep, and then you had the river and the little diving pool, and then the we basically landed on our feet for a while.
Well,
In
Well.
surroundings, in setting.
in surroundings maybe,
We did
but
have
definitely
the-
not the bus.
We did have the challenge, okay, because although we could see all this around us, initially we were there in the middle of COVID, and they sort of looked at us in the morning. They sort of welcomed us, said hi, but kept their distance. Nobody wanted to come near us because obviously we'd travelled down from Solihull area. We still had no electricity. We were trying to communicate with them to plug in extension leads and have power. Trying to find where we could get water.
So
I think we've
just to give
invaded
reference
by
to
a
Oscar's
bee.
sudden comment there. If you're listening to this in the future, it is summertime here in England. It has been a very hot few weeks, and we've just had our whole podcast
Oscar's
recording
across the table.
intruded by a bee, which means at least 2 people have left the table, and he's just bouncing up and down the window. So
Now, Daddy's going to the rescue.
yes,
There's a
Dad's
buzz,
going
buzz,
to the
buzz
rescue.
in the window. There's a
But
buzz,
to
buzz,
pick up
buzz
from
in the
from
buzz.
where Dad was going, we pulled up to this amazing place, and God's faithfulness in this was just amazing. We genuinely got to see blind faith work. We were reminded of was it Abraham who God told to just
Yeah,
go to the new
no,
land
not me.
without knowing where he was going. God just asked him to go, without saying where the final destination would be. We knew our final destination was this address, but we didn't know what it was going to be like. And obviously, as I said, we had this picture of a pig farm, but we woke up to be surrounded by lambs, as Ariel said, as we explored this area of this land that we were on. It turned out that there was this babbling brook at the bottom of the land. He had a little wooded area, loads of fields to go and run in, and the most amazing thing was, particularly for me, and this was just a sign that God was watching out for us, was, it's amazing, was this, basically, maybe 20 yards from the bus?
Yes.
Yeah, 20 yards from the bus. I'll get to my part in a second, but we had running water. We had a place to empty the toilet.
We had a shower.
Which is very important.
No, we
with
didn't
us.
have a shower at first. We had to wait 3 weeks.
We had running water, a place to empty the toilet. Then we also had power. And the best part of it was this farm had this amazing new technology called airband Wi-Fi, which is this amazing thing where in the middle of the village near this farm, they put this dirty great big satellite on top of this church steeple, which receives its signal from somewhere out in space. No, it was in the village, and then it beams it across to a little satellite on the side of the barn, and we got like 70 Mbps
I don't know what
Wi-Fi
that
signals, which to any nerds out there is brilliant for the middle of the Dartmoor National Park. So we had high-speed Wi-Fi sitting on this farm, which was absolutely
I
amazing.
think you've missed out a lot there.
We have
I
missed
seem
out
to
a lot,
remember
haven't we?
climbing up several trees.
So that was to connect the Wi-Fi to our bus.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but we had this one inside the barn.
Oh no, that's right, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had to go and sit inside the
We
barn
had to-
with
we
the
had
log,
to sit
with
in
the
the
log
barn.
burner. Do you remember?
Yes, I remember having to sit inside the barn, and if we wanted to work, we had to go and sit in this barn with no doors, so the wind would rush through. But we had this little fire pit, so we'd put logs in there from this massive log pile, and we'd light it. And we'd sit there with our laptops and let the Wi-Fi do its thing, and then we'd go back to our bus where the Wi-Fi ran out, and there was no mobile signal at all. So where did we have to go to get mobile signal?
Oh no! So there was mobile signal in one spot. If you leant over the front chair and stuffed your hand into the corner of the window by the doors, you get 1 bar.
Yeah, but it wasn't reliable at all.
No.
So if we had to message anybody or download anything or order anything,
We were using our phones or iPads. We used to have to march out of Phil's farm and then literally half a mile up the Dartmoor hill to we were sitting on top of Dartmoor looking across the heathland,
Yeah.
where if we were blessed, we would get 1, maybe 2 bars.
yeah,
So
off
you'd
And if we
see-
wanted
4G.
You'd
Yeah,
see
4G,
this family of
just,
6
only just.
sitting on top of the moors, all on their iPads and their phones, trying to
All-
get connection to the outside world.
all trying to get updated messages.
But as Mum likes to remind us, that time we were the fittest we've ever been.
We were.
Because if we wanted internet to do anything, we had to hike up a hill.
We did.
Whereas
Hot,
now,
cold, raining. If you wanted signal, you were going up the hill.
Let's make a comparison. Nowadays, if we want a little bit of privacy and we just want to do some bits and pieces on our devices, we can just walk into the next room, or as most people do, you go and hide in the loo and shut the door. With the bus,
Is that a silent confession?
yes, absolutely. Confess.
That's why you take so long.
I go hide. Yes. However, on this occasion, if you wanted a signal, doesn't matter what time of day it was or night, if you really needed to do something, you literally had to go out of the farm and half a mile up the hill just for a 5-minute message.
Yeah. And with a little, how old was Eli then?
6.
Six.
No,
No, 5.
4 or 5.
4 or 5. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
He was pretty young.
And 2 dogs.
Yep.
2 dogs.
2 dogs.
Eddie was how old?
Eddie was 1.
Like 1? Yeah, so
1.
he was effectively a puppy.
So cute.
And we had Flynn.
Flynn was old anyway.
Flynn
he was
still
like
old.
7 or 8.
But I was just going to say with Eli that kind of age, we would go up the hill and all go to Phil's barn and have to download stuff and bring it
That's
back to the
right,
bus
yes.
to watch videos.
I remember we
Which was fun.
had Netflix at the time, and if we wanted to watch anything in the evening in the bus, we had to go across to the barn and we had to download it. And I distinctly remember the Bethel Kids film coming out called
that.
Bright Ones, and Ariel desperately wanted to see it, and it came out while we were on this farm, and we were like, oh, let's watch it tonight. But what did we have to go and do? But I have to go and download it.
No.
It had to download it in the barn, and a couple of times it failed, but they had to go back and get it, and eventually download it, and then we can bring it back to the bus. So if we wanted to watch anything, we had to go and download it first in the barn, leave our iPads there, come back later once they're downloaded, and then watch it.
Oh, no, literally, I remember that we used to leave the iPods there the iPads rather for at least.
Yeah, iPods is going back a long
I know
time.
it is, but we used to leave them there for at
iPods.
least an hour, and you could see them. You could see them in the shadows behind the log burners whilst they were downloading.
Yep.
But the point I made a moment ago, and I preempted it slightly, but we were desperately trying to figure out how we could get Wi-Fi to the bus itself.
This was about 2 months into our stay.
No, about a month, if that.
It wasn't that long, was it?
No, it wasn't that long.
About 6 weeks. But because we'd all got fed up trying to find this signal. So having spoken to Phil, we decided that we would invest in
So, just-
lots and lots of cable.
Just to reference, we've mentioned Phil's name a couple of times, but who's Phil?
Phil is the lovely owner of the farm.
Didn't we say that the other week?
I don't think we did, no.
I'm not sure.
mad
Phil's
scientist.
the owner of the farm,
That's right.
isn't he? Yeah.
Yes.
Were the farm.
He runs
Yeah.
the
Worth
B&B.
Worth the farm.
Worth a farm.
Worth the
Yeah.
farm does a beautiful guest house and B&B, and he's also got these caravans down in the woods right down by the
Wheels
river.
in the wilderness.
Yeah, but we mustn't
Wheels
forget
in the
about
wilderness,
other
that's
people who
right.
lived on the land.
Lily and Derek?
The GGs.
The GGs.
The
The
grandparents. So he lived with his grandparents on the land.
No, he
With
lives
his
with his
parents.
parents.
With his parents. That's right. They
parents.
weren't. Yeah. Well, okay.
Anyway.
They were
Okay.
called,
anyway.
they were
They
called
were
the
awesome.
grandparents because of Phil's nephews and nieces, weren't they?
Yeah, because
That's right.
Because they're no, Phil's grandchildren.
Yes, they were Phil's grandchildren. They called the GGs because they were great grandparents.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
Anyway, you were saying about Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we eventually found an extender. I'm not quite sure how we connected it up now, but there
I
was
can
an
tell you.
There was an I'm sure you can. There was an extender in the roof of the barn, which was like if you go into one of these huge antique shops on the high street, there's just bric-a-brac everywhere.
Oh, it was amazing.
The extension to Phil's barn and upstairs was like that. It was like a huge antiquity fair.
It was an antique emporium.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was all his stuff and other people's, all just there.
He even had one of those ancient diving suits.
I remember.
With like the
Oh.
fishbowl helmet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The ones
You
that
could
you
spend
see
all day in there,
octopuses in
couldn't you?
pirate shows.
It was
He
absolutely
had so many
fascinating.
books up there. He'd let us go up there and borrow the books and
I
read
know.
through them. That's where I first read The Little House on the Prairie, book 1.
Yeah,
That's
know.
where I fell in love with
We
The Little
lost
House on
you
the
two
Prairie.
over there, didn't we? But anyway, getting back to the point, we managed to run cables out of the roof of the barn,
Yes.
and then literally we had these huge ladders, and we took the cable from the roof of the
Take me
barn
some pictures
across
of this.
the farmyard into the trees, and we literally had to put a ladder up against a tree. There's a whole bank of trees going all the way up the pit that we had the bus in. So there's a big drop on our left-hand side, and we'd be going
Yeah.
up the slope
So
with a ladder onto each tree.
Not only were you on a drop, but you were climbing up a ladder.
That's right.
On a tree next to the drop. So needless to say, I was a bit hairy.
And all for the sake of Wi-Fi.
All for the sake of
I know.
Wi-Fi.
Three of us
You
doing it.
can't live without Wi-Fi.
And then when we did it, we went from tree to tree. We've got about 4 or 5 trees, got the cable going all the way along. And then, blow me, we had to climb up one of the trees, loop all of this cabling up. Do you
I remember this,
Do you remember?
yes.
And we'd open up the escape hatches on the bus. And we would literally be trying to throw the cable from the trees, which is up on the side of the pit.
Probably about 10 yards, 15?
I don't know, quite a height, wasn't it?
It was a height.
But if you could see us sitting here, we're all sort of gesticulating with our hands, sort of going, it's up here, it's way, way up here.
Yeah.
And we used to throw this cable and try and get it into the middle of the bus, into the ventilation,
That's right.
the thing at the top.
Until I think we finally figured it out that if we just dropped the cable down the ledge, someone could grab it and then just chuck it up over the top of the bus on the ground.
They did, but it was much more fun trying to do it the other way.
Hindsight
It was
is a
more fun.
beautiful thing.
In fact, I don't even think we went through the emergency hatch in the end. I think we went through the
do you know
window.
what we did? We tied it to we tied it to a big log, didn't we? And we were trying to throw the log over the top of the branches in the tree so
That's
we could
right.
pull it down on the other side
Oh my goodness.
to raise the cable right up out the way to stop the cows that came up and down the sides.
I bet no one had to
and
set
the
their
sheep.
Wi-Fi up like this in lockdown.
No, and then get it into the bus. It was
we
it
didn't beat the
was
first installation of Wi-Fi.
and my hat off to Phil because he was an absolute star. Between us, we all managed to do it. It was a scream,
It was.
but when we did it, when it was eventually accomplished, we had internet in the bus.
It was
We
amazing.
We
did.
could watch a movie in the bus.
We could.
We could work in the bus.
Yes, we could.
And we heaved a sigh of relief.
We certainly
Didn't
did.
give us hot water
No.
or a shower.
Or a shower.
That was about to come.
Well, we were at this point. Just to recap, at this point in the bus, we still had no running water, which was fun. Oscar's bed was above the cabin. No, my bed was above the
your bed was
cabin.
above the cabin at that point, yeah.
That thing was so small that if I turned over in bed, my shoulders would wedge in between the mattress and the ceiling. It was so small that if I woke up in the when I woke up in the morning, not if I woke up in the morning, when I woke up in the morning, you could see the condensation on the ceiling from where I'd been breathing.
That's
It
right.
was basically kissing the roof.
I could kiss the roof from where I was laying. But anyway, that's besides the point. But the Wi-Fi thing was just amazing because it just showed that God was looking out for all aspects because that there are, there's things that are more important to some people than others. Wi-Fi happens to be one of the things that's quite important to me just because of the line of work I do. And God was looking out for us because we weren't getting dial-up speeds. We weren't getting 3 Mbps or 2. We were getting 70 high speed,
Not bad for the Dartmoor.
5G router, and it was absolutely brilliant.
As you can tell, this is what flicks Noah's switch.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
For Mother and I,
one of the
we
big-
had hot water eventually.
One of
to
the
get
biggest
that-
things in this season, though, was we had no car.
Oh.
We left it in Birmingham
We had to wait
because
for a
we
friend to
couldn't
load up
drive
for
the
us.
bus and the car
Well,
at the same
that's okay.
time.
And this is why we had so much exercise because we didn't have a car. We walked everywhere.
And no one could bring it to us because Devon was locked. So we had to wait until like the first break in the lockdowns where Devon was open for a bit.
Yeah, we've
A
been there about
friend
2 months.
Drove it
Yeah,
out for us.
but before we get to that part, remember the miracles that happened in between. We had to order our shopping, and this was just before we got the Wi-Fi installed. So we'd have to climb to the top of this hill. Mum would sit there for an hour with the Sainsbury's app open on her phone,
Morrison's.
whatever, trying to order her shopping online on top of the hill, and we'd make fun up there, wouldn't we? Eli bought a kite. And he started flying this kite. I've still got photos of you trying to fly this
We
kite
have,
at the
that's right.
Dartmoors. Eddie and Flynn loved it up there.
Many gorse bushes were sat in.
We couldn't
and
actually-
squished.
Many gorse bushes.
Do you remember we couldn't actually get Morrison's deliveries? We had to rely on Phil.
That's right.
Yeah.
He took his car,
That's
bless
right.
him,
That's right.
and we'd drive to the local village, town, which was what? Tavistock.
I think we got deliveries for a little bit until they stopped doing them.
No,
and
they
then
didn't do them for a while, and then we got them.
okay. Well, anyway, so we had to order our shopping, and
That was hilarious.
it was hilarious.
Phil, bless him, he used to go and get the shopping, and whereas we would get not quality brands, but cheaper brands to make sure it goes around the family, Phil would go for us and come back with all these quality brands, and we'd wonder why our shopping bill was so high.
So, for example, if we get Tesco
because he's
value
a single guy, he just didn't realise.
washing powder,
Yeah.
we would end up with Persil or Fairy
Or Ariel,
or
Super
yeah, or
Colour,
whatever
it is. Yeah.
But it was fun. But the miracles I'm talking about is when we actually got shopping deliveries to us, and we'd have to order our shopping. The best part about it was we would order, just your typical stuff, but we jokingly called it our doubling angel for a little while.
We did, didn't we?
Because these shopping deliveries would come, and items would be doubled. So we'd have extra meat. So one week we got like 4 times the amount of meat we'd ordered. One week we got a really nice bottle of wine, which we hadn't ordered, and we gave to Phil. Eli's favourite sweets in lockdown were flying saucers, which is like those wafers filled with sherbet.
Sherbet, that's right.
And one week we went to order them, and it said out of stock. We can't give you these. It said it on the receipt. It said it in the basket. It said it everywhere. Shopping comes, and what comes in the shopping, Eli?
4 packets of flying saucers.
4 packets of flying saucers. And this trend continued, didn't it? Because
For quite a while.
every week we would get double the amount of flying saucers that he ordered. And
Well, some week we had so much.
Yeah.
We had so much meat we couldn't
Yeah.
store it.
And we had to
didn't
give
have
it
on the
to
bus.
Phil.
We had to give it to Phil because we just had nowhere to put it.
it's just like God kept prospering us. Even in the middle of nowhere, with no car, we just kept getting double
It
groceries.
was a bit like
or-
Joseph, wasn't it? You know how Joseph was sent somewhere, and even though it wasn't the best, he was prospered. And because he prospered in that place which wasn't the best, other people prospered as well.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not saying we're Joseph, but, you know, we were sent somewhere which felt like it at first, and we got blessed while we were there. Other people got blessed because we were blessed, so it was really amazing.
I think if Mum were here, she would make a
Make
a very good point of what God said to her before we actually went to Phil's, and that was that God said to her, "I will hide you in the cleft of a rock." And when we arrived, you know, as we said before, we woke up and where were we? But literally in the cleft of a rock in Devon. So it was literally like, what was it? Is it called a silage pit? Is that right?
it was an old silage
Yeah.
pit, but it'd been dug out
It had been
to
dug
create this
out.
cleft of a rock.
In this rock, and it just goes to show, you know, God is very specific, and what He says, you know, is true, and it always lines up, you know.
What made that so special, Oscar, was the fact that we had. I'm trying to think now. How do I explain this? Because we'd come down into Dartmoor, we were actually in National Dartmoor Park.
Yeah.
And they are incredibly strict with what they have. Phil had to be so careful with just having a white caravan that could be seen, because the Dartmoor National Council was so fussy. And he just he'd have to put them somewhere to be considerate to everybody. So when we turned up in this huge yellow bus, he was concerned that it might be obtrusive.
We might have to paint it and tell it.
Yeah,
We
we
stand
might
out
have
to some
to
extent. We might have
cover
to
it in gorse bushes.
Yeah, we might even have to move. So when God moved us into this cleft in the rock, to be fair, when you're on the main road and you're driving around, you couldn't see us.
No, we were
actually-
hidden.
We were hidden below the level of the road. You could not physically see us.
So
Unless you were on the far side of Dartmoor looking across the valley,
Mm.
then you could only just see us because
Yeah.
the barn was in front of us. So we literally were hidden, weren't we?
Yeah, so the word that God gave Mum, He would hide us in the cleft of a rock. Not only did He put us in the cleft of a rock, but He literally hid us too,
Absolutely.
because we couldn't be seen,
Yeah.
which was amazing.
During that period, you know, of COVID, when we came out of Birmingham, it was in the height of the COVID period, and if you know, I'm sure you were probably in that time as well. I think we all were affected by it in some way. You know, you'd realise it was pretty scary and chaotic during that time, and God pulled us out of that chaotic time and placed us in a place where we could be at peace. You know,
Yeah,
and when we got a car, which was how far into the process?
probably about 2 months, 2.5
2 months, yeah.
About 2.5 months, because we'd got fit by then.
Ah.
I have to say that they'd literally just lifted all the bans for travelling, and they'd just opened the gates to Devon, as it were. And then a couple of really good friends of ours, Jay and Kieran,
Yeah.
they were an absolute blessing. They drove from Lichfield down to Solihull to collect our car, and then from Solihull all the way down to Devon to deliver us the car.
Oh my word!
my word,
What
it
a
was-
day it was!
God.
What a day.
You don't
What a day
realise
it
how
was.
dependent you are on a car. This was just amazing.
As soon as our friends had gone, the first thing we did was got in the car and we drove. And for the first time in 2.5 months, we were able to see what was more than a mile away from us.
And that was in itself was amazing, because we drove around thinking, oh goodness me, you know, look at what we're living in. We had no idea. And as we drove through Tavistock and around,
A bit
all
like the
local
Truman Show, wasn't it?
villages,
A bit like a Truman Show moment. We live in this world.
I guess, yeah. You live in this world, and then
We hit
suddenly
the
you can
wall.
break through. Yeah, we
yeah,
got
the
to
producer had just
explore.
opened the door and we were off. That's it.
We got to
absolutely.
explore all the areas around us, which was amazing, and you know we're so grateful that, and they were able to bring our car to us. Well,
That's right. They were blessed as well because
yeah.
they managed to get down to Devon Beach for the whole day, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But that helped us survive having the car. I think if we hadn't had the car, we probably would have gone nuts. But there was a couple of other miracles that happened, wasn't there? Because
Loads, actually, to be fair.
there was
It was a
tons.
real
But
blessing to them,
in
wasn't it?
the period of like first arriving, you know, the first couple of months that we were there, because I think we were on the farm for a total of about 4 or 5 months. But for the first couple of months, we still had no running water in the bus, as I said. Which meant our showering arrangements weren't ideal. We had fitted a little hip bath.
Didn't you mention the bus before? The bath.
Yeah, but that was when we had the plastic see-through tub. We had fitted a little hip bath, and we would have to fill up the urn, and we'd have to pour it in, and fill up the urn, pour it in, fill up the
Marius,
urn,
bless
pour
him,
it
he'd
in.
done that for us, didn't he? Just before we left. Solihull.
That's right. The trouble is, of course, with no running water, that meant if someone wanted a bath, but your water supply was at 25%, and the bath takes 80 at least, someone had to go and get more water, and then you could keep boiling the water, and then you might have to go and get another tub of water,
Yeah,
and then
that's
eventually you get to this hip bath, which is in the middle of the bus, which was a poor design choice, wasn't it? Which meant if anyone wanted to get to the bedroom at the end of the bus, they couldn't because someone was in the bath, and if anyone was at the end of the bus, when someone got in the bath, they
I'm
couldn't
not
get to the
looking.
front of the bus because someone was in the bath. So needless to say, that was
And because it was a short
fun.
bath, your legs used to stick out into the aisle.
Yes.
So you had to,
Yes.
you had to curl yourself up. Anyway, I'm sure you can
You
picture
can-
it.
you can-
And I know
well,
we've mentioned it
don't
at some
picture
point.
Maybe don't picture it, but I'm sure
I know
you
we've
can
mentioned
imagine.
it at some
Don't do
time
that
in the
either.
past. So we eventually, not only now having a car, we'd also been there for a long enough period of time that they felt that we were actually safe, and allowed us to use what was effectively like a granny annex in the side of the barn, where the washing machine was and a kitchen of sorts. But more importantly, there was a decent sized bathroom with a full size electric shower, which was just amazing.
No,
was
so
phenomenal.
think about it like this. This was what, 4 months into living in the bus? No.
About 3.
About 3 months into
3
living in the
months
bus.
at most,
So
yeah.
that's 3 months without a running shower and having to dip in and out of this half-filled shallow hip bath. So it was absolute bliss. I can remember squeals of joy coming from Mum and
Oh
Harry.
my gosh, I can just remember something.
Go on.
Yeah. And when we first got the shower, we came up with an idea. It was probably terribly mean, bearing in mind we just got a shower, but we came up with an idea to do something really mean to Dad. I don't know if you remember it. Was it Dad or Noah? I can't recall.
Well, just tell
But-
us.
Well, because the bus where we obviously got into bed was on one side of the farm and the shower was on the other side of the farm, when they went in the shower, we took away their clothes.
That's right. And to walk from the shower back to the bus, you had to go past the windows. You could be seen from many
bed and
windows
breakfast.
of the main bed and breakfast house. You could also be seen by the self-catering cottage. This was like the main thoroughfare
I do remember.
through the farm, where cars would come from the driveway, where people would drive past and see you clearly, where people could come from the farming fields.
Yes, it was.
So to take someone's clothes
Shoes, I think.
was pure evil.
Evil. It was evil genius.
But,
I did have a towel,
well, praise God.
and I did run.
But
They're all watching me out of the bus, laughing their socks off.
all that
I
to say,
do
you know,
remember.
it's just God's provision, isn't it? You know, we
Yeah,
pulled
that
up.
wasn't- that was a lack of provision.
Well, not your clothes being stolen, but we were surrounded by lambs, which happens to be one of Ariel's favourite animals in the whole wide world. If you know Ariel for more than 2 minutes, you know that she loves sheep. We got not just Wi-Fi, but super fast Wi-Fi. You know, God gave us this amazing electric shower, which the ladies loved, didn't they? They were squealing. I'm sure if Ari was here, she's left the table at the minute, but Ari would tell you the first time they got in the shower, they're absolutely squealing with joy. You could hear them. You know, but 3 months without a proper shower, you can understand. But one of the biggest things
Go on.
about the farm
was
that before we got locked down and COVID went into play in the world, God had spoken to Mum and she had shared with us, and I think he spoke to you as well, and pointing at Dad here, and he said, Manna, our ministry that we do with performing arts, spread the gospel, etc. He says Manna needs to start making a sound on the airwaves.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
And
yeah.
we were thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? We were living in a perfectly normal world. Our musical theatre company was going absolutely fine. We were doing big performances, gaining the attention of big audiences, really gaining speed. I'm like, okay, well, the airwaves, all right. Well, what's that? Video, audio, songs. And we were thinking about that. And then suddenly, COVID hit, and we suddenly realised, that's probably what he meant. Make a sound on the airwaves, because everyone went digital. Everyone went online. Churches, ministries, the works, everyone did it. So we started off making a sound by doing these audiobooks, which we took like stories from our musicals and we turned them into audio dramas. We took stories from the Bible, we turned them into audio dramas, and we had a great group of people who came along and started recording remotely with us as well, as we did that all from their own homes, creating these incredible pieces. But in lockdown,
all over Europe,
from all over the world, yeah. But initially, we recorded those with the microphone and a laptop in the bathroom of the bus. Just pumping out these audio dramas, trying to make this sound on the airwaves. We had to do online teaching classes to keep our academy running, because we were doing a musical and we were doing all the training online, and we were recording videos across the campsite. This was just before we came to Devon. So we were doing dances out on the tarmac in front of the bus, and we were recording the...
Ariel was.
Yeah, Ariel was. We were recording the tutorials in the kitchen of the bus. It was crazy. It was good fun. But anyway, all that to say, we'd started launching into this media side of Manna and the performing arts. And Dad mentioned this granny annex that was on the side of the barn at Phil's farm.
That's right.
Where the shower was. Now, what we haven't told you yet was this. 10 years before we arrived, God had spoken to Phil and put on his heart to build this annex on his barn. I'm going to keep calling it an annex just to hide what it is for a minute, you know. And he told them to build it, so they built it, and they built it really, really well. It was done to a very high level of excellence. And he was like, I've always wondered what I should be doing with this, you know. And then you guys came, and he showed us what this place was, and they had built this custom-built
recording studio.
It had the proper full-length windows looking into the studio. It was all sound deadened. I think the floors were sound deadened as well. It was all properly locked with proper double glazed doors, with locks, the works.
Everything was sound deadened except the windows.
Except the windows, yeah, that's right.
We'll
yeah, where all the quad bikes drove in.
That's right, yeah.
But there was a sound booth with a doubly insulated door or something. Needless to say, I think our mouths fell open when we realised that God had said to us to make a sound on the airwaves. We got locked down. He'd directed us to Devon. He'd given us the Wi-Fi. He'd given us the double shopping. He'd given us a car. He'd given us the shower. And then he gives us a recording studio. It was incredible.
Which was amazing.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And then to top all that off, just to add to it, like God wanted to just, plop a little cherry on top of it, a charity awarded Manna a grant to buy things to kit out the studio. So we went and bought the microphones that we're recording on right now. We bought proper equipment to do all these audio recordings. We bought some video lighting, and we bought some video gear, and God just gave us the ability to have this space, even during COVID, even during lockdown, to start pumping out material. And it was just a sign to us that God said, even though there's a worldwide pandemic, even though everything's crashing around us, I'm not going to let your call be hindered. And I'm going to keep pressing you forward, and you're going to keep reaching people. And we did reach people.
We did.
And it was incredible. So this place that was meant to be a pig farm became a haven for us.
For how many months?
4 or 5?
4 or 5 months.
We were there about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
We were definitely there about 6 months. But it was 6 months that was an absolute blessing. And when we look back on it now, we realise that actually not everybody had a blessing like that. Some people really struggled with COVID and where they were staying and not being able to escape.
Yeah.
For us, it was a little inconvenient to start with.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing adventure. It brought the family together. We met some wonderful people. We had all these blessings on this farm. And not only that, whilst we were on the farm doing all these bits and pieces, we also had the awesome privilege of actually helping Phil.
Yeah, we did.
To clear the farm of wood.
We were
We were
the
going
log chopper.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
The
know.
log splitter.
Yeah,
the log splitter.
Well, Phil had this amazing vision to build this little nature reserve at the bottom of his farm, didn't he?
That's right.
Because
He probably has by now,
he
to
had
be
the
fair.
farm and had the barns and everything, and then it did this big deep slope, and it sloped all the way down to this bubbling brook, which turned into this big swimming hole that he dug out. But he wanted to turn this place into a nature reserve. So not only did we get to do our ministry while we were there, we got really blessed learning new skills and doing new things. I got to learn to drive quad bikes. I drove Land Rovers. You drove the quad bike. You drove the Land Rover.
I crashed the quad bike.
You
but
crashed
we
the
won't go
quad
there.
bike. We won't talk about that.
Next
the
time.
quad bike was fine. Something else wasn't, but never mind. But we just had this most amazing time helping Phil with his land. We got to rip out old fences. We got to chop down trees,
But
chop
ripping
up
out old
logs.
fences, what we say is we were ripping out old fence posts from bogs.
That's right.
And we were having to lean across bogs with big chains and wrap them around the posts and then pull it out with the Land Rover.
Yeah,
it
with
was
the
just
pulley
a
on the Land
stream.
Rover. It was
Worked our absolute socks off, didn't we?
It was absolutely brilliant.
It was.
It was great fun. We loved it. So I'm sure when Mum and Harry join us again for not the rest of this podcast, but another podcast, we'll tell you more about our time at Devon, because there is so much more in terms of miracles and answers to prayer and people we met. Genuinely, we could spend forever telling
Friends
you about
from years ago.
Yeah, we could spend forever telling you about the things that happened in Devon, and the things that God did in our family and our own lives, and just incredible things. But we just wanted to share this first part to Devon, the first few months,
Yeah.
and we
could get carried
because of
away.
time we haven't been able to share everything
There is-
even in
there
that.
is so much more that happened on the farm that we could tell you. Someone getting healed of cancer.
Yes.
All sorts of things.
Yes.
And on another podcast, we'll tell you. We're going to leave it here, I think,
Ooh.
because we've really. I know we've sort of skirted a lot of things. There's so much to fill in the gaps.
There is.
And I'm sure that Miss J would love to fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we think about when we look back at Devon and being at Phil's farm is God's provision and, just trusting him. Like, he led us to go to Devon. We didn't know what we were expecting, and yet our every need was met. Our every need was met. It was absolutely incredible, that we went there just on blind faith, trusting God, got pulled over by the police, let through miraculously, and then just slowly, as we obeyed, all these things just lined up, even to the point of being able to use a professional built working recording studio.
Yeah. And the thing is, I want to give a scripture and some sort of reference here, but all I can think of at this moment in time is just, again, is that Joshua situation where...
Joseph.
I beg your
Joseph.
pardon, where he went somewhere that was not the best, obviously full of trepidation, and yet he was blessed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And things happened to him that he would never imagine, and that in turn affected other people. And this is exactly what happened to us over this period of time, and lots more things. It was just a very, very special time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we were taught in that season of going to Phil's was sometimes God will lead you to do something without showing you exactly how it's going to pan out.
That's right.
In fact, that's more often the case than not.
Isn't it just?
And it paid off, and that has played into our lives many times where God has said, you need to do this, and we go, but God, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about this? And we remember Devon, and we go, okay, well then we need to just do it. And there's been so many times when that has every time it's worked. It's been amazing, hasn't it? Even as recently as doing the Passion Play in Leek.
That's right.
God says, you need to do this. We go, okay. We see all the limitations, and we go, okay, and we do it anyway, and God does incredible things. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons we learned from Devon. There's many more, but that was like the highlight one of going to Phil's. So if there's something that God's asking you to do right now and you've been putting it off because you don't know all the details, or God hasn't shown you absolutely everything that you need to know, or maybe the finances aren't there right now, or maybe the people aren't there right now, or something's just in the way, but God keeps saying to you, go, keeps nudging you in your prayer time. You keep hearing the same thing, go, step out in faith and go. I think is the biggest thing we can say, isn't it? Just do it, to coin a phrase from Nike, or however you say it, just
Listen,
do it.
Yeah, if you're going to take anything with you this time, take this one with you. If God's asking you to do something, And even though you don't fully understand or see the bigger picture, remember that he does. Just do it.
Absolutely. And something, we were talking about with our youth group a couple of weeks ago was this. We were saying, just do it. And we were like, but what happens if I get it wrong? And we were saying how that's the beauty of it, Is God so small that he can't fix our mistakes? God would rather that you stepped out in faith thinking that you'd heard him, and then putting faith in that. And then he can go, hey, actually, you know what? Your faith is amazing, but you're just a little bit off course. Let's just turn this way and we'll keep going. He's brilliant at recalculating. I know everybody compares it to sat-navs, so I won't bore you with that analogy. But he's brilliant at just taking our mistakes, flipping them around, and pointing us in the right direction. There's a phrase that says a parked car will never go anywhere. So all the time you're sitting there going, but what about this, Lord? What about that, Lord? And you're going, but I'm not going anywhere, Lord. Well, that's because you're not choosing to go anywhere. You need to move forward, go in our direction. And you know what? If you've heard right, praise God. If you haven't heard right, praise God, because he's going to correct your course a little bit and you'll keep going. But the point is, at least you're on your way.
Absolutely. Another very quick analogy. You're driving down the motorway of life and you can pull over into gas stations and get yourself sidetracked. And you might end up staying in those gas stations for too long. But you just need to remember that the exit route back onto the motorway of life is really, really simple. It's right there. Okay, just listen and just move forward. And
Absolutely.
God will take you.
Yes,
God will
he
take you.
most certainly will. Most certainly will.
You know what we didn't do today?
Give Oscar a song.
We didn't give Oscar a song.
Yeah, we didn't give Oscar a song this week. Apologies, everybody. Oscar's looking at us like, oh no, but he doesn't really mean it.
Crestfallen or relieved. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think he's relieved this week, but that just means we'll have to be double on him next week. Like a really, really good subject. And on that note, if you have a suggestion for a song for Oscar to do on next week's podcast, feel free to send it in. You can email us through our ministry website, which is www.mannatheatrecompany.uk. You can also leave a comment on this video on YouTube, or you can leave a comment in your review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Yeah. On that note, if you would leave us a review, that'd be absolutely amazing. We would love our message and the stories of God's miracles and goodness that he's done in our lives. To speak to so many other people. We've already had so many people tell us how much God has spoken to them just by sharing our stories, and we just want other people to be able to experience that, and we want to give people that chance. Let me rewind. We want to give God that chance to speak to more people through our stories that we're sharing, the ones that he created in our lives. So if you can help us achieve that and get this message out to as many people as possible just by leaving a review, we'd be so honoured. Well, there you go. That is the first part-ish of our time at Phil's in Devon, and there is so much more, and that's coming in the coming weeks. This bus story is far from over. There are so many more ups and downs and thrills and challenges and scary bits and happy bits and funny bits.
And work our way across the county.
Yes, we do. So many more.
We could just carry on
strange things with the lockdowns.
There's so much that's happened.
It
just bubble over with all of these.
It could be like a Channel 4 drama, I promise you.
Without the adverts.
It's without the adverts. But anyway, it's gonna be a wild ride. So thank you so much for joining us. We are absolutely chuffed to bits to have you on this journey with us. So from all of us left at the table, it's a big goodbye from me.
And from me.
And a big goodbye from Dad, and Oscar's mic was muted, but he said goodbye, I think. Toodaloo, there we go. Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining us again for another week on the Crick House. As said, we are absolutely chuffed to have you with us. It's such an honour to be able to share our stories with you. If you want to find out more about me and my family, you can visit www.manna, which is MANNA, theatrecompany.uk. We as a family are also full-time missionaries or Christian workers, so we rely on the sponsorship and support of people just like you to meet our daily living costs, and that enables us to then go and be able to do the ministry all over the country, sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ through the performing arts, and what a privilege it is to do that. So if you'd like to support my family, support our ministry, support this podcast, go to www.mannatheatrecompany.uk and you can find out all about it there. So we are doing a big GoFundMe at the moment for the Passion Play, which we're taking to Devon. You can also find out details about that on our website as well. It would be just a huge blessing if you would consider supporting that missions trip there. But yeah, thank you so much for your support and for supporting this podcast by listening. We're so grateful for everybody who listens every week. We are so privileged to have you with us. So Until next time, thank you, and we will see you soon.